morning, students. This is Naushad Azam, called as Azam Sir, on behalf of my colleagues of Social Science Faculty of International Indian School, Dubai. I welcome you all to class 10th and wish you good luck. At the outset, let me wish you that you all are safe, healthy at home. Take utmost care. Dear girls and boys, social science is one of the major subjects in class 10th. As you know, it comprises of history, political science, geography, and economics. It's very interesting subject. It's not only important for your exam, but also important for various competitive examinations ahead. A lot of understanding is required for this subject. If you know the content, you will not have any problem. That's why understanding, hard work, and proper presentation are very important to excel. Today, I'm going to take the first chapter of political science, power sharing. The content of power sharing. We will discuss ethnic composition of Belgium and Sri Lanka, majoritarianism in Sri Lanka, model of power sharing in Belgium. We will learn what we learned from the stories of Belgium and Sri Lanka, why is power sharing desirable, and we will also discuss the forms of power sharing. To start, let us understand what is power sharing. Power sharing, let me give some example. Power is not only shared by government. Let us understand by a small example. At your house, power is shared. Your father works in the office. Your mother works at the house. You go to school. You also help your parents. In this way, power is shared properly. You know, at your school also, power is shared, top from the principal to your driver uncle. And if this power is not properly shared, there will be chaos and conflict. Hence, I define power sharing as a system of political arrangement in which power is shared among different political institutions. I repeat, a system of political arrangement in which power is shared among different political institutions. Let us understand two ethnic composition of Belgium and Sri Lanka. And in this chapter, we have to mainly discuss the power sharing in these two countries. First of all, let us understand the ethnic composition of Belgium. Belgium is a small country. It is smaller than Haryana. And you can see its borders are with France, Netherlands, Germany, and Luxembourg. This country so far as ethnic composition is concerned, there are 59% speaking Dutch speaking people, 40% people speak French, and 1% people speak German. So the majority is of Dutch. Whereas in Brussels, the majority is of French speaking. 80% people speak French, 20% the people speak Dutch, but they are majority in the country, but minority in Brussels. The minority French people were rich and powerful. The majority Dutch got the benefit of economic development much later. This brought the conflict between Dutch and French speaking people. The majority and minority. There were the conflicts in this country. The tension between the two countries were more acute in Brussels. Dutch speaking people were in minority in capital, but majority in the country. In order to make proper arrangements between 1970 and 1993, the constitution was amended 4 times to extend to accommodate social and cultural diversities. This was done by sharing the power as follows. Let us understand how is power shared in Belgium. There are 4 points here. Before I go through the clipping, in 4 words you can learn power is shared. How is power shared in Belgium? In the end, I'll give you the questions. Equal number of ministers, transfer of power, separate government, and community government. The first, the Constitution of Belgium says that there should be equal number of ministers from both communities, Dutch and French, in the central government. So there is no dispute between Dutch and French people. Point number 2, transfer of power. Many powers of central government have been given to the state government of the 2 regions of the country. The state governments are not subordinate to the central government. Hence, there is no dispute between central government and the state government. The third provision is, the other provision is separate government. Brussels has a separate government in which equal representations are there for French and Dutch people. And one of the most important provisions of power sharing is community government. The formation of third type of government, community government, that is elected by the people belonging to the one language community, Dutch, French, and German, wherever they live. This has power regarding culture, education, and language related issues. This is called community government. Now, let us know this model was very complex. Though complex, the model has worked well so far, and Belgium has emerged one of the peaceful countries of the world, and it has avoided civil strife between the two communities. Now, let us understand the ethnic composition of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, the majority Sinhala speakers are in majority. They are 74%. They are mostly Buddhists. Tamil speakers are 88%. They are Hindus and Muslims both. There are Indian Tamils. They migrated to Sri Lanka and worked as a tea plantation during the British rule. 7% of the population consists of Christians who speak both Sinhala and Tamil. You know, Sri Lanka was under the British rule, like India was under the British rule. India got independence in 1947. Sri Lanka got independence in 1948. After independence in 1948, Sri Lanka adopted a series of majoritism measures to establish Sinhala supremacy over the Tamils. A series of laws were made. The first important law was made in 1956. According to the Act of 1956, Sinhala was made the official language. Sinhala speakers were preferred both for university positions and government jobs. Constitution was amended to protect and strengthen Sinhala language. Tamils felt isolated. They thought that even the constitution was against them. None of the political parties ever considered their demands. The Tamils formed group organization and parties to fight for the rights. Before I come to their demands, let me repeat that how is majoritism practiced in Sri Lanka? You know, Sri Lanka was under the British rule. A large number of Tamils went to Sri Lanka. They got settled. They work in the plantation work. After independence, power came in the hand of Sinhalas. Sinhalas made a series of laws which were against Tamils. Sinhala was made the official language. Buddhism was fostered, and Tamils were discriminated socially and economically. This led to a big strife in Sri Lanka known as civil war. Civil war continued for many, many years in which thousands of people were killed. This was the cause of civil war because Tamils were discriminated and power was not properly shared. Now, you should understand what are the important demands of Tamils. The important demands for Tamils they demanded recognition of Tamil as an official language, regional autonomy, and equality of opportunity in securing education and jobs. But their demands were denied. Further, several political organizations by 1980 demanded independent Tamil People in northern and eastern part of Sri Lanka. And as already I discussed, civil war broke out. Now, Belgium and Sri Lanka. We learned power was properly shared in Belgium. Power was not properly shared in Belgium. Both the countries are democratic. But differences are there. Power sharing arrangement is different. What is unique about Belgium is that in Belgium, power is properly shared. In Sri Lanka, power is not properly shared. Leaders have realized that the unity of the country is possible only by respecting the feeling and interests of the different communities and regions. What was the drawback to the system followed by Sri Lanka? You know, dominance of majority community resulting in disunity in Sri Lanka. The question is asked here, what lessons do you draw from the two stories of Belgium and Sri Lanka? We draw the lesson and we learn from the two stories that if power is properly shared, there will not be any conflict like Belgium. And if power is not properly shared, there will be conflict. So we learn from the stories of Belgium and Sri Lanka that power should properly be shared. Now, let us understand page number 6 of your textbook. Why is power sharing desirable? Power sharing is desirable mainly due to two reasons: prudential reasons and moral reasons. Before I explain, let me answer it in a nutshell. The prudential reason of power sharing is that power is shared in order to avoid conflicts. If power is properly shared, there will not be any conflict in the country. Second, moral reason of power sharing. Moral reason of power sharing is that power is shared in order to ensure that the country is democratic. If power is properly shared, the country is called democratic. The power sharing is the very essence of democracy. A legitimate government is one where citizens are not discriminated. They all are equal. This is known as moral reason of power sharing. And go in detail, prudential reason of power sharing. It avoids conflict between different social groups, imposing will of the majority on the minority. The tyranny of the majority brings ruins both to the minority and majority, as that happened in Sri Lanka. Forms of power sharing. There are four forms of power sharing. Power is shared among different organs of government. That is known as horizontal power sharing. Power is shared among different levels of government. That is known as vertical power sharing. Power is shared among different social groups. Power is shared among different political parties and pressure groups. Let us understand how power is shared among different organs of government. You know, there are three organs of government: legislative, executive, and judiciary. Legislature makes laws, executive executes the laws, and judiciary settles the dispute. This power is shared at one level Hence, it is called central power sharing. Each organ has got right to check another organ of government. So it is also called check and balance. It is also called horizontal power sharing. This question can be asked in many ways. How is power shared among different organs of government? What do you know about horizontal power sharing? What do you know about check and balance power? Second is vertical power sharing. Vertical power sharing, this power is shared at different levels. There is central government, state government, and local government. Central government is at the top. It shares some power to the state government. The state government shares some power to the local government. This power is shared from top to bottom in one level. Hence, it is also known as vertical power sharing. The central government is set up for the whole nation. The state provincial government is set up for the each states. The central government transfers, shares some of the powers to the state government, as that happened in Belgium. In a country like India, this type of two-tier system is not sufficient. So we have a third-tier system known as local government. Both the central and the state government have transferred power resources to the local government. We will discuss in the next lesson. This is called decentralization. We will come to know the importance of decentralization in India. Power is shared on different social groups. Power is not only shared by organs of government, levels of government, or political parties. Different social groups also share power. Like socially weaker sections also have some power to share. You know, there is a community government in Belgium. That government looks after the social and religious affairs. In India, it is done by the way of reservation. You know, there is a reservation for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe in India. And the constituencies and seats are reserved for women. Discussed in next chapter, one-third seats are reserved for women, and scheduled caste and scheduled tribes seats are also reserved. Thus, power is shared among different social groups. Fourth point is, how is power shared among different political parties? There are different political parties. The number of political parties in the country. All the political parties contest election. The party which wins forms the government, runs the country, makes laws for the country. The party which is in opposition plays the role of opposition party. It cites the wrong policy of the ruling party. It does not allow the ruling party to do whatever it wants to do. Checks the wrongdoing of the ruling party. So power is shared by both ruling party as well as opposition party. And you know, if a political party is unable to get majority to form the government, a number of political parties merge together and they form government known as coalition government. In this way, a number of political parties share power together. Besides these political parties, there are a number of pressure groups and movements. They also share power by exerting pressures on the government. They exert pressure by various means and get policies framed in their favor. In this way, we can say that power is shared among different political parties and pressure groups. Now, you should go through the textbook After going through the textbook, practice these questions. And you can send the answers on my WhatsApp, or we will check after the school reopens. My number is 05021888352. These questions are: define power sharing. I already defined. Mention the ethnic composition of Belgium and Sri Lanka. What led to the tension between Dutch and French-speaking communities in Belgium? How is power shared in Belgium? Already we discussed there are 4 provisions of power sharing in Belgium, and the 4 points we discussed: equal number of ministers, transfer of power, separate government, and community government. Mention 3 important demands of Sri Lankan Tamils. Discuss the various causes of conflict in Sri Lanka. What do we learn from the stories of Belgium and Sri Lanka? We learned that when the power is properly shared, there will not be any conflict as that happened in Belgium. When power is not properly shared, there will be civil war, there will be conflict, there will be quarrel in the country. We have to elaborate these points in detail. Why is power sharing desirable? We discussed 2 points. Power sharing is desirable due to 2 reasons: prudential reason and moral reason. This was the first question in this year in board examination. The question was: define prudential reason of power sharing. Prudential reason of power sharing is that power is shared in order to avoid conflict. Moral reason of power sharing is that power is shared in order to ensure that the country is democratic. We have to elaborate these 2 points with the help of textbook as well as the notes. What are the forms of power sharing? The forms of power sharing are: power is shared among different organs of government, that is called horizontal power sharing. Power is shared among different levels of government, that is known as vertical power sharing. Power is shared among different social groups. And last, power is shared among different political parties and pressure groups. Distinguish between horizontal power sharing and vertical power sharing. You should know, horizontal power sharing is shared at one level. Vertical power is shared at different level. Horizontal power sharing there are 3 organs of government. In horizontal power sharing, there are 3 organs of government: legislative, executive, and judiciary. In vertical power sharing, there are 2 and then 3 levels of government are there: central government, state government, and local government. In horizontal power sharing, each organ has the power to check another organ of government. In vertical power sharing, each one is dependent on other. And the 4th point, we can give the example: executive, legislative, and judiciary, central government, state government, and local government. These 4 points you write for distribution, horizontal power sharing and vertical power sharing. Then how is power shared among different social groups? Just we discussed. How is power shared among different political parties and pressure groups? You know, what is a coalition government? Define coalition government. I define when the single party is unable to get majority, it takes help with other political party and makes the government That is known as coalition government. You know, today is the trend of coalition government because the number of political parties are there. It has become very difficult for one political party to get absolute majority or to get the magic number to form the government. That's why coalition government has become very common nowadays. Majoritism means when the majority community of a country, they believe that the majority community should be able to rule a country in whichever way they want. That happened in Sri Lanka. This is called majoritism. Ilam means a separate homeland, proposed homeland demanded by Sri Lankan Tamils is known as Ilam. Girls and boys, I have given a brief sketch of the first chapter. Please go through the textbook. We'll come back to this chapter again. Wherever there is a doubt, please note down. Keep a pencil in your hand when you read the book. Underline important points. Whatever doubts are there, please to WhatsApp. Thank you very much.